the CXINLAW podcast.
My name's Carl. I'm your host today, and I'm a partner of CXINLAW, a service insight and development consultancy who specialise in helping firms and providers perfect the customer experience delivered to clients. Over the next 10 minutes, we'll introduce the background and objectives of the customer experience revolution, a new study from CXINLAW and the first of its kind in the legal sector. We'll also be speaking with two of our secret shoppers involved in the research to find out what service experiences they received when making calls to firms and providers, some of the service issues and plus points revealed along the way, and what service advice they would offer firms and providers given their secret shopping experience.
Background and objective.
The aim of our new study was to assess the front-end service experience of prospective clients calling a firm or provider with a new inquiry, and to identify practical recommendations on perfecting service delivery at this point. Of course, the study is informed by wide-reaching regulatory changes, demand for improved customer service, and the objective of every firm and provider, which is to attract, retain and grow client market share. Our research was conducted between June and November last year in 2011, using secret shopper techniques commonly found in the retail and hospitality industry to establish the quality and impact of client interactions with legal staff. 100 top regional and hybrid branded firms were secret shopped with 4 inquiries and their service performance rated by our secret shoppers.
Secret shoppers.
At this point, I'd like to bring in two of our lead CXINLAW secret shoppers involved in the study, Sunil and Judy. Thanks for joining us today. Sunil and Judy, would you like to briefly introduce your background to our listeners?
Thanks, Carl. Sunil here, business and lifestyle coach and emerging author, with 25 plus years experience in the corporate world, with multi-sector business experience, including professional services.
I'm Judy, and I run my own style and image consultancy. Prior to setting up my business, I spent 14 years working within the professional services sector for one of the Big Four accountancy practices. During this time, I was an audit manager, a learning and development specialist, and executive coach. As well as being a secret shopper, I've been a real consumer of a number of legal services, including will writing and home and land purchases.
Thanks for that. We know that most, if not all, firms and providers would consider client service to be essential. In this study, we focus specifically on the impressions of service given at the point of a new call made to a legal advisor, having spoken to a receptionist or operator along the way. Sunil, can you give us an example of a service experience you received?
Yeah, I had one negative experience. I called a firm and I was put through to an advisor who was a trainee. The trainee listened to my requirements and after a few minutes said they couldn't help, passed me to an advisor where I was greeted with a voicemail, and the voicemail just said, please leave a message. I felt really neglected by this experience.
And Judy?
Yes, there's one negative experience that really sticks out in my mind. I called a legal firm about starting up a business as a limited company. When I spoke to the lawyer, he started grilling me about why I wanted to start a company, asking the questions in a confrontational way. I felt I needed to defend my approach, as he was saying things like, oh, that's ridiculous, that's a silly reason to set up a limited company. I felt a bit like I was back at school being told off by the teacher. He could have done it in a different way rather than using his authoritarian manner. Perhaps he was merely trying to challenge my reasons for starting a limited company and get me to appreciate that there are other business structures out there. Unfortunately, he left me feeling like he was the last person I wanted to help me.
Our aim was to be balanced and constructive without pulling punches. What about a positive example?
In contrast, there was a positive example that also stuck in my mind. Another lawyer used a completely different approach to the previous example I gave. When I spoke to him about setting up a company, he asked about my business and pointed out that there were both legal and tax implications in setting one up, and that there were also other options for setting up in business that I might need to consider. His approach suggested to me that he was trying to get the best result, rather than pushing me into any particular direction. He explained legal and tax terms simply, and even gave me his direct dial number. I would have been more than happy calling him back for further advice.
Yeah, I also had a positive experience. I called one firm and I explained my requirements. The advisor listened very attentively and he expanded my knowledge of the issue I raised with him, told me how premiums varied across the country. Yeah, overall he answered all my questions and he actually broadened my knowledge and my thinking.
Is it possible to identify your key impressions, both the service plus points and challenges of the firms and providers, given the calls you made? If so, what would these be?
Yeah, Carl, I had a few impressions. One in particular, when I was calling the multiples, I was quite surprised by the amount of information I had to give, even before I could speak to an advisor. Also, when talking to advisors in other types of firms, in many cases, I felt talked down to. I felt a real take it or leave it type of approach, almost like my business wasn't worth it. But, I had a positive impression as well. And, when talking to an advisor, he took the time and he didn't blur me with all the legalese. And it was really comforting. I could understand what he was saying.
And Judy?
I've got 3 pieces of advice, really. The first is that when you're purchasing expertise and advice from a legal professional, you're dealing with an individual, so chemistry and rapport are vital. As a consumer, you want someone who's interested in you and understands your needs, but who can also explain things simply, and also someone that you feel comfortable asking the more stupid questions to. I think the legal sector needs to invest more in building relationships with their potential clients. The second thing I would say is that pretty much any call centre you contact, whether it's a bank, a credit card company, or even when you're booking a holiday, is able to hold a conversation with you where you feel like your call is important and that you're not being a nuisance. I really think that the legal sector could do more to invest in much more friendly, helpful and efficient receptionists. The final piece of advice I would give is that some legal providers are expecting potential clients to provide a lot of sensitive information before any trust has been built up. They need to consider if they really need so much information, as it's potentially frightening customers away.
Thank you both for your insights. Remember, these are real secret shopping experiences, and we trust at least some of the comments you've heard add value.
Summary.
There's a very simple question you can ask customers or clients after a service experience to arrive at what's called the Net Promoter Score. This often asked question within the retail and hospitality sector is, how likely are you to engage and recommend this company? We asked the same question of our secret shoppers. The result was that 19% of calls made left our shoppers feeling indifferent and undecided about engaging and recommending the firms and providers they spoke with. 34% of calls made actively turned them into what's called a promoter. They might seriously consider engaging and recommending the firms and providers they spoke with. And 46% of calls made resulted in our shoppers actively avoiding an instruction, and they would tell others not to too. The overall sentiment we were left with was negative, with a clear opportunity to impress with service. Our study reveals how the client's front-end experience is a key success factor that differentiates the best from the rest in a changing legal market. And we deliver our service results in full with expertise and practical advice that will help firms and providers benchmark against their competition and perfect the customer experience they offer. Our report, The Customer Experience Revolution, is available on our website, CXINLAW.com. Thanks to Sunil and Judy for joining us today, and thank you for listening.
The CXINLAW podcast.